taller than I am. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Beverly Weber, and I'm the lay chaplain with the Unitarian Church of Calgary. Before we begin, I have a few announcements. Please take a moment to silence your cell phones now if you haven't already done so. I think I already did mine. If you haven't had an opportunity yet, there is a guest book that you can sign. For those with cherished memories, we have planned some time during the service for you to share. Please join the family following the service for food and drinks at Janet's request. I also see a lovely bunch of pictures, so take some time there to go through that. And I'd like to open with these words by Christina Rosetta. Mama. Remember me when I am gone far away into the silent land. When you can no more hold me by the hand, nor I have turned to go yet turning stay. Remember me when no more day by day you tell me of our future that you had planned. Only remember me, you understand. It will be late to counsel them or pray. Yet if you should forget me for a while, and afterwards remember, do not grieve. For if the darkness and corruption leave a vestige of the thoughts that once I had, better by far you should forget and smile than that you should remember and be sad. I'd like to invite forward Janet's son Malcolm to introduce the piper.
So thank you very much all for coming. It is wonderful, wonderful to see you guys. As a quick note, I'm hoping that you will all be able to stay until at least 4:30 when it gets dark, as we've managed to get permission to burn a half-size replica Viking burial ship on the lake just behind us. Not really, but it would have been cool. So Mom left behind a folder in her filing cabinet called Death, in which she had details of what she wanted along with practical information. She requested Mozart's Piano Concerto No. 21, second movement, which you heard a few minutes ago, as well as something Scottish. So a piper was the obvious choice. And for anyone wondering why I'm not doing that part myself, the answer would be apparent if you actually heard me play. A mother's unconditional love may extend to her son's middling musical skills, and I know you guys love me, but let's not push it. So I've asked my friend Jeannie to play 2 tunes. And this is only going to get harder. The first is a 2/4 march called the Brown Tree, which I chose for 3 reasons. It was a tune we had on a record when I was young. It was based on a folk tune that Mum knew as a child, and Round Trees happened to be one of her favorites. And the second tune is a happy tune, simply called The Panda.
I first heard, and then again. I first heard about Janet's death while I was on Facebook, through a friend of a friend of a friend. Anyone that uses social media knows what I mean. In the search bar, I entered Pringle's name, and the first thing I saw was a picture of her. She was wearing a pink blouse, and she had this most beautiful smile. I asked myself, where did I know her from? Where did I meet her? But my memory failed me. I've not yet managed to connect the dots, but there's people here that I've met before, so maybe it's my old age coming now through. Maybe tonight, in the middle of the night, I'll jump up and be like, that's where it is. Or maybe just when I get to chatting with some of you, it might come back to me. When meeting with Malcolm and Nadine to discuss Janet's celebration of life, I learned a fair bit about Janet. She was passionate about women's rights, dedicated much of her time to social activism. She also dedicated time and energy to caring for the ones she loved. As Malcolm had mentioned earlier, after her passing, they had found a file in the cabinet marked death. Janet had very clearly documented for her family and her various affairs, as well as her final wishes. I don't believe Janet knew her time was up. What I do feel was that she was looking out for her family, something that she'd always done. I'd like to now invite Malcolm up to give the eulogy.
This is becoming a theme. When she was born, my mother was named Janet Graham Robertson. When she married my father, she became Janet Graham Russell, and she stayed that way until they divorced. At that point, she was left with a question. What should her name be? She was no longer a Russell, but neither did she want to go back to sharing her father's name of Robertson. So she became Janet Madeline Pringle. Pringle she chose after an ancestor of hers called Angelique Pringle, who was one of the first female doctors in Scotland. This was a woman she both admired and felt a kinship with. But she also jettisoned the middle name of Graham, a name given to her by a father who couldn't bear to give up the family tradition, even though he ended up with 3 daughters and no sons. And so Janet took the middle name Madeline, after the 1939 children's book of the same name. Her choice of Madeline, was aspirational. Madeline was the smallest yet bravest of the 12 girls in her boarding school. Janet may have felt anxious, but Madeline was fearless. Janet was terrified of spiders, but Madeline was not afraid of mice or even tigers. Janet was concerned about poor health, but Madeline made all 11 schoolmates envious of her appendix scar. This was who she hoped to be. But even if Mom wasn't fearless, she was brave. In spite of her timidity, she would stand up to anyone, anywhere, if she felt they were taking advantage of others. And when she stood up, it was almost always on behalf of someone other than herself. She was generous, she was incredibly compassionate, and she would never tolerate injustice or mistreatment. When my sisters and I were young, her first concern was for our well-being. But as we grew, so did her circle of concern. In the early days, she worked with development groups, Arusha in Calgary, and nuclear disarmament groups, campaigning to have Cochrane officially declared a nuclear weapons-free zone before the end of the Cold War, when this was a socially risky stance to take. In later years, she did a degree in sociology, fretting over every single assignment, yet graduating with nearly a 4.0 GPA. She worked as a plain language translator for the benefit of people with developmental disabilities, as well as newcomers to Canada who struggled with English. She took on tutoring people who had difficulties with the language. She worked for the VRRI. At every step, she campaigned for the rights of the dispossessed, the marginalized, those without a voice, and those with a voice who just needed an ally to stand alongside them and make it louder. She worked for LGBT rights, women's rights, and Indigenous rights. And throughout all of this, she maintained a dedicated practice of letter writing to friends across the ocean, but mostly to the powers that be. She wrote to prime ministers, MPs, MLAs, and councillors. She had mastered the art of the crafted letter. Polite, concise, and direct, requesting specific action and a response. For years, she had on her bathroom wall a framed cartoon. Showing a young girl with a page boy haircut sitting at a table, pen in hand, face turned towards the viewer. The caption reads, and I swear they actually used the name Janet, "Janet set aside an hour a day to work on her threatening letters." She loved that cartoon. I've got plenty. The day after Mum died, I was in her bedroom, and I noticed a wooden box in her bedside table, a box I'd given her over 15 years before. It was full, and it rattled. It was full of protest badges. And I will ask you this. When you leave this room, pass by the table with the badges. Find one that reflects something you care about. Take it, wear it, and remember her by it. She loved people. She loved people, she loved dogs, and she loved books. In the words of Groucho Marx, outside a dog, a book is man's best friend. Inside a dog, it's too dark to read. Mum was passionate about reading, and she kept a hardcover journal in which she recorded the title of every book she read. The journal's pages are almost full. She sometimes complained that she couldn't remember what she'd read afterwards, but I reassured her it was more likely a matter of sheer quantity than a failing memory. We brought with us a handful of books today from her bookshelf that the readers among you might enjoy. There are one or two special ones, but after I've given those ones away, please, when you go, stop, and if there's a title that appeals to you, please take the book with you. Mum's death was a complete surprise to everyone. She had minor physical problems, but nothing that gave us any clue that the end was near. She spent the night before she died at the home of a dear friend, Denise. Denise lives in the country in a beautiful spot that Mum loved to visit, surrounded by fields and trees. They spent the evening eating and chatting, and she was happy. The following morning, when she woke Denise to tell her something was wrong, or she woke to tell Denise something was wrong, she lost consciousness before the ambulance arrived, and in spite of the CPR and the epinephrine, she didn't make it. And Denise, I'm so sorry. That you went through such a traumatic experience, but I have to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know how hard you tried, and I can't imagine how you felt. But I hope you understand that you gave my mother exactly what she needed at that moment. She didn't need someone to bring her back. She just needed somebody she loved by her side. By her side when it was time to go. And for that, I will be eternally grateful. She left us happy, in the company of a good friend, in a home she loved, in a beautiful location, knowing that she would see all 3 of her children in the weeks to come. The weather was mild and sunny, and it was almost as if her body chose this as the perfect time. And so the story of my mother's time among us is now complete. We all know how it ends, but we will always be able to go back and reread our favorite chapters. We can share memories of passages with other people who know the story, and with those who've never heard it before. But for now, we close the cover, and as sad as it makes me, I leave you as Madeline did. And she turned out the light and closed the door. And that's all there is. There isn't any more. Thank you.
We are going to take time now to share your treasured memories of Janet. Please welcome to come up here. I was going to say, keep our comments to 2 minutes or less, but I don't think we're late on time. We're late on time, but if you'd like to come up and share.
Malcolm asked us to share a story and introduce the stories, and he also asked me to do a toast, so then we're confused, but we're doing both. And Lenny's tall and I'm short, so.
Janet helped us see the world. Before smartphones, all of our travels and times together were recorded through Janet's eyes. She took photographs, so many of them. She often didn't let us see all of them because she thought they weren't good enough. She wanted to choose for us only the best.
Janet wrote letters, long ones. In this age of email and Snapchat, Janet still crafted letters carefully, handwriting, rewriting, typing up, and mailing, or sometimes emailing.
We went on many holidays together over the years, some close, some far, and Janet frequently decided where we were going. We would give her parameters and she would do the research, taking into careful consideration each of our likes and dislikes. For example, Janet's 70th birthday. We wanted to do a big one. She wanted to do a big one. So we said, where in the world would you like to go? And we will go there. And we came up with a list of things we would want in a holiday together. Near water for Ida May. Bathroom on every floor for Lenny. History and museums for Betty and Janet. All of us wanted a variety of good walking spots with easy access to coffee shops and restaurants. For Janet, the most important criteria was a non-urban area. She wanted to be outside of the crush of humanity. So she picked Gozo, an island in Malta which none of us had ever heard of, but we were game. Plans were in place when we invited Julie to join us at the last minute on this adventure. She loved all of our criteria and she leapt at the chance to join us.
It was September 2014. Beautiful, bright blue weather. A tiny island surrounded by the Mediterranean Sea. I don't know why I'm crying now. The Mediterranean Sea, with incredible history, landscape, amazing food, friendly people. Janet was a bright spot, literally. She wore a lime green dress, made of incredibly thick cotton, which she insisted kept her cool on the hot days. She said it absorbed her sweat. I said, Janet, you wouldn't sweat so much if you weren't wearing that heavy dress. I didn't say horrible looking. You may see the pictures of the green dress over there. But the green dress allowed the breeze to reach all her bits. She reveled in its comfort. This summer, she told me I would be pleased to know she retired the green dress to wear for indoor only. Now I'd give anything to see her in that frickin' green dress.
This summer, our criteria hadn't changed a whole lot, although we needed someplace close to home. Water, walking, history, and a comfortable place to eat, read, talk. Janet found a cabin in the Slocan Valley, remote, but only 3 kilometers from the town of Silverton. There was heavy emphasis on eating, reading, and talking this year, which delighted us all. It's hard to describe the humor we shared. Everything was funny, but hard to translate into a story. Hanging with Janet was easy. Words flowed. Decisions just happened. Our laughter erupted, and time together was precious.
It's my turn. I'm not sure how this is going to go, so bear with me. Several months ago, in a conversation about aging and what that might look like, I told Janet that I was there for her no matter what, and there wasn't anything I wouldn't do for her. And I meant it. Little did I imagine it would mean me coming here today and talking to a group of people. Not my favorite thing to do. Janet and I were friends for over 20 years. During that time, we went down many paths and explored many places, most of which I would not have gone to without her. She enriched my life. I would like to share the story of a sunny winter afternoon. It was many years ago. It was sunny, we had just had a fresh snowfall, and we went out for an explore. We packed a picnic lunch and we went on the forestry trunk roads to the west of the city. We'd been on the road for a little while when Janet saw a horse in a field. Janet loved animals, most especially horses and dogs. So we went so she could say hello. She gave the horse a leftover piece of her carrot And we went back to the car and tried to decide whether to turn around or go on. There were tire tracks in the snow, so she assured me that everything would be okay, and we went on. About 2 kilometers later, we came across another couple stranded in the snow. They were stuck, and between the 4 of us, we managed to push and reverse the cars out. We got out just as the sun was setting. I learned 2 things about Janet that afternoon. One was that she was remarkable in a crisis, and 2, she was really, really good at backing a car out of the narrow road. Over the years, we went to a lot of places. We explored Moose Jaw, we explored Malta, and we got lost a lot. Although she would never actually admit that we were lost. We were just temporarily misplaced or just didn't know where we were right now. After some of these instances, I actually went out and bought us a compass, but we never actually used it, and it became a standing joke. I want to thank you all very much for being here to help me celebrate my soulmate, my good friend, and my dog Bertie's other mother, Janet. May her spirit soar.
Hi. I didn't write anything down, and I wasn't even thinking I was going to talk, but I just wanted to say one thing, and that's that I have a very vague memory when I was little, so I might be telling the story wrong. Dad could probably correct me. But she heard a joke once about a funeral, and I don't remember the joke. It had something to do with a runaway casket, I think. And the first time she had to go to a funeral after that, she was so terrified of remembering this joke and getting the giggles that she remembered the joke and got the giggles. So now I actually can't go to a funeral without being afraid of remembering my mother getting the giggles because it's a funeral. So if anyone gets the giggles, just remember that's probably what she would have wanted. And the other one is one of the last times I saw her, she came to Paris. And we took her out to an expensive restaurant for dinner, me and my partner and another friend. And my partner got her extremely drunk, at which point she went off to find a washroom and kind of toddled back outside with a great big bruise on her head because she'd walked into a plate glass window trying to get into the restaurant, and she thought it was very funny. And the first thing she did when she sat down was ooh and ah over the napkins because they were the size of tablecloths. And when we got home that night, she looked at me and she said, "You'll never believe what I did." And she pulled out of her bag this napkin. And she said, "I stole the napkin. I've never done anything like that before in my whole life." Now, I haven't found it in the house, but I'm pretty sure it's still there somewhere.
It's still there.
Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. And thank everyone for being here. And I know she loved you all. Thank you. Does anyone else want to have a word?
Oh, that makes it easier. That makes it easier. Sorry, how is that? Everyone hear me? Yep. Crazy question. If you couldn't hear me, you couldn't answer. Sorry, I've had the privilege of meeting Janet through the years. I didn't know Janet personally, but certainly professionally. Malcolm was referring to Janet working at the VRI, and that's where I met her. Actually, it was through the VRI while I was working with the Independent Living Resource Center in Calgary, and working with cross disabilities. And anyway, Janet was so eloquent and skilled and could communicate with anyone at any level. And I'm sure a lot of you know that very well. So I contracted with Janet and her team, or I should say teams, of people with developmental disabilities with lived experience to convert what I had put together into plain language. Now, for those of you that know me, I can be rather pedantic, shall we say, so I use language that can be rather esoteric. There I go again, right? So what I had developed at one point, I contracted with Janet several times because I grew more and more confident in the conversions she coordinated with her teams. So I brought along just a couple of samples, 2 copies of the regular version of what's termed as personal security adaptations for persons with disabilities, and also 2 plain language versions. So my first glance, at her draft of the new title for this booklet was termed as things that will help you to be safer. And I thought to myself, yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Yeah, exactly. So beautiful work, I do believe that Janet contributed so much to the disability movement, to people with developmental disabilities, and as I'm reflecting on today, to just life in general. And Malcolm, if I may pass on a bit of a personal note, I did my mom's own eulogy about 3.5 years ago. And by the way, beautiful eulogy. You've got me crying too. Just on a personal note, my mother, with my same eye condition, it's an inherited eye condition, was kind of an activist herself, and she was out there educating youth throughout the County Board of Education, over and over and again for about 35, 40 years. So the children that she helped educate around visual disability, talking about visual disability, pulling out her adaptive devices and talking about her life as a mother and a wife and a person with a visual disability who had worked with the Canadian Council of the Blind and CNIB, etc. She did that for many, many years. So it was just, I don't know what your personal philosophies might be, but not to get too metaphysical, but I think my mother and your mother would have adored one another, really would. And I believe they are up there just having a grand old time now. So I just wanted to pass that along. Now, I don't have a photograph. I know one of the suggestions was to bring along a photograph. I don't have a photograph of Janet, bless her heart, but I do have these covers. And if you can display this with the books, I'd be most honored. You can look at the regular version of the PSAs for PWDs, a couple, and the plain language version, and perhaps you could rip off one of the covers and put it alongside the pictures. Just a suggestion. But thank you, everyone.
I can take the books and put there.
Oh, thank you. Good.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to come up and share? We do.
I had the pleasure of knowing Janet for many decades. The time that I spent the most time with her was in the late 80s and the early 90s. Janet and I spent many, many, many hours in the windowless basement of the Arusha Center screening films for the One World Film Festival. Now, I was on staff at Arusha then, and I worked with the committee to select the films. Most of the films were stories of injustice and highlighted people that were working for change. Often the films were difficult to watch, and maybe that's one of the reasons why many of my committee members didn't show up all the time. But Janet was there all the time. And I felt so lucky to have her because her analysis was so sharp and she really appreciated a well-told story. She had a great love for beautiful cinematography, and it just was always more satisfying to have her there with me. Janet had a heart that was big enough to care about pain and suffering, no matter who was experiencing it, no matter where it was happening in the world. And she also had the will to do what she could to nudge the world toward a better place. I remember one film that particularly touched Janet. It featured elderly Chinese women who had experienced the painful, deforming foot binding. But the film also captured the incredible joy and the indomitable spirit of these women. And it warmed Janet's heart, and she really celebrated that. And I also think that she had that spirit in abundance herself.
Hi, I'm Julie. I got to go to Malta. It was wonderful. I wrote a poem for Janet, and I call it "The Books Are Grieving." On November 25, 2017, the books closed their covers in protest. You may have noticed something odd if you've tried to read a book since then. Maybe the book on your bedside table has gone missing, or the pages stick together more than they usually do. Or the same paragraph comes again and again before your eyes, even when you think you managed to turn the page. Or a line you once thought sang now sounds clunky and ridiculous. Perhaps you've tried to borrow or buy a book since then, and that's where the weirdness found you. Though here the books are more cautious in their protest, knowing it's tough to fool a librarian or a bookseller. By night, the books shuffle alphabetically on the shelves. By day, they slowly slip behind neighboring volumes when someone approaches them with their title in mind, and twitch their barcodes a bit so the computer scanners can't read them for the first time. Not scuttling a sale or a checkout exactly, just gumming up the works. Because frankly, the books are grieving. Not for a big author. No, books don't bother much with that. Authors are a dime a dozen, and many are half in love with easeful death anyway. The romantic fools. No, the books have lost someone far more precious. With Janet, the books have lost a great reader. Someone who immersed themselves in the story, argument, imagery, language. Someone who built communities of friends around a love of reading. Someone who helped birth whole new fields of inquiry. Women's studies couldn't have caught a foothold without readers like Janet. Someone who made you want to read more, read better. Slip out of your busy day and into an armchair with a new book, and if you were lucky, a big old dog at your feet. It was the diversity of Janet's interests the books loved the most. Who expected a wee girl from a rather dour, drippy Edinburgh to fall in love with a Canadian prairie? The driest, hottest bits. Southern Saskatchewan, Val-Marie, East End, Grasslands National Park. It was hard for books to keep up with Janet, and they loved her for it. The books know it'll soon be time to ease up on their protest. They know there are more children who will love them, need them, more nursing students, young immigrant moms, adult students, researchers, activists, letter writers, travelers. And they know that a good way to mourn Janet is to read, to help others read, to open a book, to fire up a Kindle. The books, they'll get there, but at the moment, I have to warn you, they're pissed.
So a bunch of you know me by name, but not really probably by face. I'm Nadine, Janet's daughter-in-law, married to Malcolm. Just to let you know, I did not steal this shirt, but Janet and I would have had a horribly good giggle about it because I bought it to go with the golf trousers that she loved so much, but realized at her small stature she would never, if she went and bought a pair, look good in them. But I just realized today, as I changed. This thing was flopping around, and it appears that I've stolen it. Which I didn't, but Janet would really love it. So Janet and I had one of those relationships that we grew close together. But initially, we married young. She was uncertain if I was going to live up to what she would hope to be the woman for her only son. And so I was always nervous and anxious around her and unsure. The first time we went grocery shopping, I grew up in a family that social justice wasn't on the radar. And we're in Safeway, and I put Nestle Pink Quick Mix in. And Janet goes, "Oh, you can't buy from Nestle. Do you know what they do?" So Nestle Pink Mix out. So we go down the aisle, and I put Dole in. "Oh, you can't buy from Dole. You have no idea." An hour later, I went home with nothing. And I said to Malcolm, "I don't think I can ever shop with your mother again. I don't know what I can buy." So we had a really nervous relationship for a lot of years. And Janet came to Orkney, and I said to Malcolm, "I don't know how this is going to go. She's staying in our house." And he said, "Let's give Mum her time." And she took us to a beautiful restaurant, and she cried and said, "I am so sorry that I held you up to standards that you met and exceeded, and you are the right one for my son, and it took me this long to realize it." And from that point on, Janet and I became very close. We shared a love of food. She was so excited when I told her my tortilla press arrived. She's like, "I'm coming out for tacos." And I'm like, "Tell me what you want, and I'll make you tortillas." And so we had a love of food and a love of books together. And many times I got huge hugs from this wonderful, warm woman telling me how grateful she was I was in Malcolm's life. I am grateful to have got to know her and to be there, because she meant the world to me.
Any more? Yes.
People who know me know that I can't walk away from a microphone. I don't know if I can get through this without crying, but many years ago, when I first was living with Trish and her daughter, it was Lord Beaverbrook High School graduation. And Lord Beaverbrook High School had graduation gowns that were black for boys and white for girls. And we didn't think that was a very good idea. So we thought, oh, and a letter came that said that the girls had to wear proper nice dresses or skirts. The boys, of course, could wear their jeans under the coats, under their gowns. And we thought that wasn't right on a number of levels, especially for the people who really couldn't afford to buy a nice skirt. And being a dyke, I thought I wouldn't want to wear a skirt anyway. So we enlisted Janet. And Janet mostly wrote this letter to the principal of the high school. And after a phone call and some humming and hawing, that year, all gowns were black. Thanks to Janet's marvelous letter writing, because I would have probably just gotten over and told him I was pissed off. And not said all the right words, in fact said all the wrong words. Now, we're not sure, because we didn't double check with Michelle, our daughter, whether she appreciated our efforts, because I think she kind of liked the white gown. But Lord Beaverbrook doesn't use white gowns anymore. I don't know what they did. Maybe they turned them into napkins. But Janet, we always went to Janet to get help with putting our words together. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sure Janet would have appreciated if they were turned into napkins. Especially nice big ones, the size of tablecloths.
Hi everyone. I didn't write my story down, unfortunately, so I just wanted to tell the story when I first met Janet, because I was thinking about the various, I mean, I've known Janet for, I was thinking the other day, about almost a quarter of a century, which makes me feel quite old. But anyway, I get a phone call one day. I'm working at the V in the research department from a woman named Janet. She said, we have a mutual friend, and I was wondering if I could come and interview you. It was a bit of an odd phone call because I was an interviewer, I was a researcher. I'd never been asked to be interviewed, so I said, sure, come on. And anyway, we got talking. Our mutual friend was someone from the peace movement that we both knew, so we were talking a little bit about that. And she was asking me, what do I do, and how do I do it, and what kind of things do we work on? And I don't remember all of the details of that day, but I do remember the feeling I had after talking to her. And the things that reminded me of her still were out there that day. She was smart. Janet was really smart. She was really curious. Janet always reminded me a bit of a chickadee, her eyes. They were just bright and shiny, and she was just wanted to know things and wanted to talk about things. Angry. Janet was angry. I mean, good angry. Angry at injustice. Not angry just for the hell of it, but particularly angry at injustice and compassionate for people who were experiencing that injustice. So we had I think we ended up chatting for about an hour and a half. And about 3 or 4 days later, I got a letter from Janet. Yeah. It's the first letter I'd received from Janet, thanking me for meeting and having the time to talk, talking about how excited she was to hear about the stuff we were doing. Just coincidentally, if you believe in coincidences, I'm not so sure I do anymore, but a position came up and I encouraged her to apply for it, and got the pleasure of working with her and many wonderful people that we worked together in the research department over the years. As I was thinking about Janet, or actually just before I leave that, years later, I was cleaning out a drawer because I have this thing about keeping paper, and I found the letter, and I showed it to Janet, because by this point we were friends for many, many years. And one of the things that she said to me right away, she said, I was so scared. I was so scared to call you up and say, can I come and talk to you? And I was thinking about that today and thinking about, that she was scared, but she did it anyway. She'd had a lot of changes in her life, and she just walked into that fear that she had. And that's what I think about Janet. You talked about that, Malcolm. She walked into the fear, even though she was scared, and did what had to be done. As I was thinking about Janet, I was thinking about something that Maya Angelou said once, that people will forget what you said, and they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And when I was with Janet, I felt like I was in the presence of a kindred spirit. I miss her so much.
I want to thank everyone for sharing. If you did not have an opportunity to share here, please join us later over a snack, but I encourage you to find somebody that you don't know and share your treasured memory of Janet, and keep those sharing. I'd like you to take a couple of minutes and go get a glass of wine. I believe it's already there. And then come back and we're going to do a toast to Janet. And if you're not a wine drinker, there's water and juice somewhere over there too. And coffee and tea. Have a glass of something in your hand. If everybody has a glass, I'll just...
So I mentioned that Malcolm asked if we would like to give a toast, and we didn't know how you do that, so we looked it up. Oh, here. And everyone has to have a glass. It's a rule. It doesn't matter what's in it. You just have to have a glass. And then I'm supposed to hold the glass, so somebody has to hold that. Here we go. Okay. And so I just hold the glass down here while I'm introducing the toast, which I'm going to do now. We shared many a toast with Janet, who loved her wine and cider, it's been mentioned already, and was adorably hilarious when tiddly, as she called it. So here's our toast. We raise our glasses now, just so you know that's how we do it. May we allow ourselves to feel the pain of the loss of Janet, and may she leave us inspired by her life.
May we learn to notice our visual surroundings and enjoy the moment as she did.
May we learn to pursue justice in causes important to us.
May we learn to write threatening letters. May we learn to love each other as fiercely as Janet loved us. To Janet. To Janet.
Today is a chance to mourn, but also celebrate. With that in mind, it's time for some giveaways and prizes.
So you're welcome to take your seat if you like. You can stand wherever you like. Get your raffle tickets out. And we're going to tuck those in there. Excellent. That is exactly what the sporran is for. You always wondered. There we go. Thank you. So get your raffle tickets out. There are a few special things that we brought with us today. We are not raffling off my mother's ashes. Those are coming home with us. The first item, we have a friend in Black Diamond by the name of Joe Bentley, who is not only a very, very talented massage therapist, he's also a potter. And my mum used to go, we had tea with him a couple of times, but she used to go to him for massages, and we go to him for massages. And when we told him that we were going to be having some giveaways, he made a mug. And Mum loved coffee. She loved coffee, she loved having coffee with friends, she loved having coffee on her own, and this is your chance to take home something to remember her by. So I hope you have your raffle tickets ready. I'm going to... That's right, that's what this is for. You always wondered, didn't you? Barbara Price. You don't have a ticket. There's the roll. Okay. Is there anybody who didn't get one? Barbara, you are the only one. All right, this better be worth it. There we go. I'll take one. Barbara, you take the other one. Anybody else lacking in that sense? I mean, you got one? 5 more? No, you only get one. You only get one. It's only fair. Barbara. Hi. I want you to reach in. Lenny lost hers. Okay, Lenny gets another one. Okay, everybody gets a fair chance. This is all about equality. All right, let's have. So that's fine. So I'll take the other halves. Where the other halves are. This is the other half. Okay, that's fine. Barbara, I know you've always wanted to. There are about, however many, 60, 70 numbers in there. Reach in, please take one out. This is for the coffee mug. Yes, I would feel like she cheated as well. Please check your number. This is number 490-2002. 490-2002. You have 5 seconds to claim. 4, 3, 2, 1. That might have been Lenny's. All right, Barbara, go for it again. This, you can guddle around in there all you like. All right, thank you. We have number 490-2012. Who's got 2012 at the end? 2012.
Seriously?
Sorry?
The numbers are too small, nobody can read them.
It's all, oh, that's one, that would have been yours, Ida May, but we didn't give you the extra 5, so here's a lesson for you. All right, go for it, Barbara. This is the one. This is the one. You can guddle down to the bottom if you like. Is that the one? All right, 490-1996, 1996 at the end. Who has 19? Hey, there we go. We have a winner. Your very own coffee mug. Take it. Drink your coffee and remember her well. The second item. Now, some of you will know this. Nadine and I lived in Orkney for a number of years in Scotland. And while I was visiting one of the smaller islands off the mainland of Orkney, I took a photograph of a friend's goats. And I loved this picture, so Nadine and I turned it into a block print. And we made about 4 of them. 3 of them. And one of them we gave to Mum, and she loved it. She hung that on her wall for many years. So this is a block print of 2 goats on, I believe it was sandy.
Yes,
We'll
and they're
double check.
smiling.
And they're smiling. They're 2 happy goats. It's a mum and kid. And Diana, would you do the honors?
Absolutely.
And this goes to 490-1966, 1966.